Alright guys, we're back. Once again, my name is Brett. My channel is Good Talk Gaming. We're here for part 2 of our High Elves and Lizardmen unit testing. I'm joined once again by my friend Triiari. If you watched the first episode, you'll have seen that we clashed with our infantry. We've moved them out of the way so they won't hinder kind of our balance of power. Right now, it's tilted a bit in the High Elves' favor, but we're going to do a bit more fun unit testing here. Next up is the Ancient Salamander, and we also have the Hunting Pack. So these guys work in conjunction. They're two of the new units from the latest DLC, and their kind of big deal is that they're ranged monsters. They're very fast. You can use them in flanking maneuvers, but used in conjunction, one buffs the other. So the Hunting Pack, they do flaming damage on their melee attack and flaming attacks on their missile damage. They of course cause fear, but we also have this kind of bonus effect on the Ancient Salamander's missile damage called Flammable. You can see that on some of the dwarf units as well, but it reduces speed and it gives an increased weakness to fire damage. So who better to shoot these types of fireballs at than the Fireborn themselves, the Dragon Princes. So the Dragon Princes, if you're not aware, in addition to their ridiculous stat line, they also have 20% physical resistance, martial mastery, and then 70% fire resistance. So we're going to see, we know already that if we just shoot them a little bit with the Hunting Pack, it's not going to do anything. It'll do almost no damage to the Fireborn. But, so right now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to move forward with the Ancient Salamander, start taking some pot shots, and then with the greatly reduced range on the Hunting Pack, we're going to move them in as well. So the Ancient Salamander gets that first shot. He's going to apply that flammable debuff as he kind of hawks a loogie, pretty gross, onto the Fireborn. So boom, dead center hit, not much damage to speak of, maybe like 3 or 4% damage. So now finally the Hunting Pack gets into range, and they're going to start shooting. That flammable debuff is still active. That's a decent little amount of damage. Perhaps once again another 3 or 4%. But their reload time, look how long it takes for them to shoot again. I think after the Everchosen, they further reduced their reload time to make it, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 seconds longer. I don't know if I quite agree with that change, because if you just watch them as we're watching them now, they can kind of take forever to shoot. But they're still worth it. At the end of the day, they're still monstrous units that you can use. So Triiari, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and charge the Fireborn into the Hunting Pack and see what kind of damage we can get going. So not bad damage, I mean, over the course of a very long game, but the Fireborn are a unit, and I can already kind of hear in Triari's mind what he's thinking. The Fireborn would almost always be supported by healing magic, by regrowths, and they're such an expensive and such a powerful unit that you're never just going to leave them unsupported to take damage like this. And even after all those volleys of fire, they're going to be still very powerful as long as you can give them that regrowth, and you don't ever want to take them without healing. So the Hunting Pack is going to be driven off, and now the Fireborn run through. Okay, so if you can pull the Fireborn back, I don't think we need them for any more testing. But now what we want to do, and this is something that Triiari is curious about, is the strength of the Great Eagle and then the Noble versus the Ancient Salamander. And this is going to be a bit of a one-on-one as monsters. So Triiari, if you want to bring in the Ancient, or just the Great Eagle, I'm actually going to shoot at it as it comes in, because one, I don't think it's going to hit it, but if it does, that's kind of just an added bonus. Absolutely. If you want to, so he's asking if he can dodge, and I say absolutely. It's a very slow projectile. I feel like if a player like Triiari is microing the Great Eagle, you'll never be able to hit it with the Salamander. It would just be pure blind luck. So we see there we have like a point blank shot, but that's mostly because the Great Eagle was very close. And now he's going to dive in. He's going to get that charge bonus. And let's see how just the standard Great Eagle does. So the thing about flying units, flying monstrous units in particular, is that he's going to get a charge bonus, and I'm not. So he got his huge 62 charge bonus off, but the Ancient Salamander did not. However, I think it's pretty clear that the Ancient Salamander is a superior monstrous unit. I think the Great Eagle, before too long, will do a decent amount of damage against the Great Eagle, but I think in a one-on-one, the Great Eagle might get him down, you know, something like 33 of his HP, something like that, before routing off. They're kind of flimsy units. They're not meant to take on huge units like Ancient Salamanders, but I think in a pinch, if you needed to shut them down like you would an artillery piece, it would be okay to use a Great Eagle versus the Ancient Salamander. So now we know that. So here we have the big boy, the Noble, on a Great Eagle. So this is going to be a whole different ball game because the Noble has anti-large, and I'm not sure if he maintains that whenever he's on his Great Eagle. We can look at his weapon damage. So no, he doesn't have anti-large bonus anymore, but he does have pretty decent armor piercing just as a standard hero. So yeah, we can fast forward this a little bit and see how this fight goes. I'm expecting the Noble to win. What do you think, Triiari? Who do you think is going to win? Sure. Right. Okay. So Triari's point here is that one, first off, the Noble decimated that fight, but two, that for the cost, you can still take a Noble on a Great Eagle, and you could take even a few of his abilities, and it'll still be cheaper, if not, nearly the same cost as the Ancient Salamander. So very effective pick versus the Lizardmen. I think the Noble is almost a must-bring. You put him on a chariot, and he destroys dwarves. You put him on a Great Eagle, and he's great versus Skaven. He's great versus, Lizardmen. You put him on a horse, and he's good versus any large target, period. So a Noble is a very cost-effective unit. Sure, sure. So yeah, I think so too. Right. Okay. So he's saying that another good idea is to use a Noble as a kind of a hunter for skinks on their pterodons. So either whether that be versus the actual pterodon unit itself, or versus like a skink priest on a pterodon, or a skink chief. The skink chief probably a bit harder because with that 360 poison fire, it would probably be difficult to catch. That might be kind of like the counter to the counter, but versus a skink chief like a skink priest or against a pterodon unit in general, I think the Noble is just a great pick. It's almost an auto include in my mind after seeing how effective it was just now versus the Ancient Salamander. So next up, let's do. I think we wanted to do Lord Kroak out on his own here, and we're gonna let him get shot at by the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. Let me fast forward with you here, and in just a second, I'm gonna move my guys just a bit more. So Lord Kroak is a kind of the first true legendary hero unit added to the game. The Green Knight kind of counts in terms of multiplayer, but his deal is he has one spell, 3 iterations of it do a ton of damage, and he also can regenerate his Winds of Magic quite quickly. I didn't bring that because I didn't think it was necessary. You could, yeah, feel free to fire if you'd like. And so right now he's taking a good bit of damage. He's a slow-moving target. He's unbreakable, but at the end of the day, he's going to take a ridiculous amount of damage from that. So what we were talking about is ways, or are ways, to protect him from this type of focus fire. So we see there just a few volleys, and that took a huge chunk of his HP. So what Triiari is doing now, he's moving Elithanar and the Handmaiden of the Everqueen next to the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, and they have several buffs between them that allow them to do lots of damage. So Quicksilver Shot, plus 10 reload skill, Horn of Isha, plus 5 reload skill is going to be relevant. Enchanted Spyglass for missile damage, 10%. Martial Prowess not, of course. But Darken the Skies, plus 20 reload skill. So that's pretty brutal, and it's something, it's kind of like the dream, right? When you're playing High Elves, if you want to have an archery-focused build, to take Elithanar, take Handmaidens, stack them on some, powerful Sisters of Avalorn, the Everqueen's Court Guard, get all of those buffs, and then just snipe the heck out of anything you want. So if you want to stop firing, I think that's pretty clear. That's ridiculous. The rate of fire there is huge. So what I would like to do is just leave your artillery right there. I would love to drop the Deliverance of Itza right on top of it and see if it can do any damage at all, whether or not it destroys some of the artillery pieces. Sure, let's save that for last. That'll be the grand finale. Good point. So what we want to do now is I'm going to move all of my Skink Chief Lord. I'm going to move in my Star Chamber Guardians, who we kind of saved from death in the first part of this video. And we also brought the Legion of Shakwa with their missile resistance, Shield of Shakwa, that they're able to give in an AoE around themselves. So this is kind of the crux of the testing. What I would like you to do, Triiari, is to shoot at my red-crested Skink Chief in just a moment. If you want to move the Sisters of Avalorn, you know, all of your ranged units. Well, I don't want to damage Kroak too much more, and I think we know how much damage like an Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower can do. I think that's pretty well. Sure. So I was going to do all of that kind of at once. So what he's saying, he wants to see kind of the Guardian buff, see how well that protects like the red-crested Skink Chief. I kind of have, I think we can kind of anticipate it's, you know, it's like, you know, it's 10 to, what's the exact Guardian amount? It's 18% physical resistance. So I think we can kind of quantify that. But what I would like to see right now, if you don't mind, Triiari, is just take all of your ranged units at once. And I would love to see you shoot at my my red-crested Skink Chief. So I'm going to let like maybe the first volley hit. We'll see how much damage that does just all at once if you can open up with one salvo. So get like all of them selected at one group and just right-click on the Skink Chief. And what I'm going to do is we're getting the 18% physical resistance. That's not going to help us much versus the magic damage on the Sisters of Avalorn or the Handmaiden of the Everqueen. It'll help us versus Elithanar and versus the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, however. So the Guardian's good there. And then as fast as I can, I'm going to also pop the Supreme Shield of the Old Ones for damage resistance. And that's ward save. That's not physical resistance. So it will negate that magic damage. Yeah, move them as close as you need to. And then I'm also going to pop the Shield of Shakwa for plus 44% missile resistance. So we should see him take a huge amount of damage right off the bat. And yeah, he's asked me if I'm ready, and I am ready. Let's go ahead and do that. First, I'm going to use the Shield of Shakwa. So here comes the first volley. Look at my poor red-crested. No, not at the... Okay, yeah. That's okay, that's okay. That's okay. Just shoot. Yeah, there we go. Not too much damage has been done. Yeah, that was huge. So one more volley. They're shooting so fast. It's unbelievable because of all those skills. So there we go. Let's take the buffs and take a couple shots here now. That is a lot of resistance. I don't know if you could tell, but he just took a volley and took almost no damage. If you look at his HP bar, he's only losing a few hundred after like 2 volleys. If these 2 abilities were not active, so there goes the Supreme Shield. Now just the Shield of Shakwa is active, and now it's no longer active. So let's stop the shooting. Oh my god, that did so much. Can you stop? Jesus Christ, you like melted him. Okay. No, the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower is going to kill him. No, turn it off. Turn it off. Okay. Alright, we're good. So I just didn't want the balance of power to dip too low, because that could end up messing with some of the rest of the tests. So, okay. I think that's pretty clear, guys. It may be difficult to pull off in the heat of battle, but between the Guardian Aura, the Legion of Shakwa, and the Supreme Shield of the Old One, not to mention the 140 armor and the natural missile resistance of 15% from the red-crested Skink Chief, all of those defensive buffs combined, and he was still taking a beating. However, popped all at once, he was barely taking any damage at all, and I think if you're going to use expensive units like this, you may also want to consider bringing the Revivification Crystal. Anytime you think someone's going to try and snipe you, bring that unit and have that healing as kind of backup plan, just in case someone's trying to snipe your Lord. And unfortunately, You know, and the Ancient Stegodon is not just going to sit still and take that. I mean, I would be, if I was using this and I was playing right now, I'd be running forward with this enormous monster, 140 armor, you know, 699 poisonous missile damage, and I would be trying to get into those Everqueen courtyards as fast as possible. So don't take that to mean that the Red Crested Skink Chief, you know, sucks, but that much focus fire you have to be wary of on just about any unit. On the Ancient Stegodon is one of the tankiest units in the game. With all of those buffs, it still couldn't stand up to that kind of like high elf pressure. Okay, so that was a pretty sweet test. Was there anything else like range-wise that you wanted to test, Triiari, before we like drop some Deliverance of Pizza? Okay, so what Triiari would like to do is just see, we have some Ripperdactyls here from the first test against the Star Dragon, and they have a huge HP pool. This won't be like a super scientific test or anything, but because we don't know how many of these models here are currently like very damaged as opposed to having like full HP. But the Tempest is something that is always in the High Mage's like toolkit, and I'm actually going to charge you. This is non-overcasted, but you see there, it almost instantly did like 1,000 damage. And yeah, wow, that did a lot. That did a lot more than I thought it would. That did about, like, was it about 1,500 damage? Wow. Sure. So what he's suggesting is that if you're going to use a Star Dragon expecting flying units from the Lizardmen, dropping a Tempest directly on the Ripperdactyls almost certainly would have cost them that battle instead of having them kind of win handily against the Star Dragon. So good point there, and I think good players know that Tempest is a very versatile spell and kind of when to take it, because there are more versatile spells than Tempest, just straight healing and straight damage spells. But sometimes Tempest can be an ace in the hole versus builds that revolve around flying units or flying lords. So, yeah, good point there. I think the last thing I want to do, Triiari, if that's all you have, I'd like to kind of like bunch all of our units together and drop the biggest Deliverance of Itza we can. If you want to like meet them all in the center. You got a Lithanar just like killing my Stegodon. That's cool. Yeah, let's get like just a big blob going kind of where my Star Chamber Guardians are going to be in just a second. And then I'm going to use the... We can actually try... This is probably worth trying. The 3 different tiers of Deliverance of Itza. Let me just go through that while we're moving, so we're not just kind of wasting time. The Deliverance of Itza 1 is, you know, it's a massive magical damage, large explosive area, strong versus a single unit. The Deliverance of Itza 2, however, has the little tooltip reads strong versus multiple units. So what you want to see is blobbed up infantry. You want to pin people in place with your infantry or your cavalry and then drop this on them. And then the third version is just incredible. I've managed to land it a few times in some of my battles. But the big important thing to know about these spells that is very unique to this spell is that it does not affect your own troops. So unlike a lot of other, you know, vortex type spells or wind spells or whatever the case may be, Deliverance of Itza will never hurt you. And that's important to keep in mind. So you don't have to be scared, you know, if your Temple Guard have been holding back 3 units for most of the battle. Don't have to be scared that you're going to kill your Temple Guard. You can absolutely just drop the Deliverance of Itza. So let's go ahead and, yeah, here we go. The strongest one? Alright, you got it. I'm going to drop it right on the Everqueen's court. Let's see how much it does. Sure. It does magical damage, so he's curious about how much it'll do to the Fireborn. Oh my god. Jesus. That deleted them from the game. That's awesome. So, guys, obviously that was beautiful, but it's so easy to dodge. It has such a huge kind of wind-up that it's very difficult to land against skilled players. If you'd like Triiari, I can drop the 2nd tier one, or I can drop the 3rd tier one. We can do that one again. In just a moment here, I'll have enough Winds of Magic, and we can do that on the Fireborn and see how much damage it does. So they're at 2,600 HP. Once again, some of their models are damaged. It's not a big deal. So what do you think of Triiari?
Our cause is failing.
Absolutely. Sure. So what Triiari is suggesting is just something we kind of talked about. Is just I think the Noble is going to be a key player. He kind of already was in the Lizardmen matchup just because of his anti-large. You put him on horseback. He's a mobile, anti-large threat for a relatively low cost, and he also, of course, provides leadership and things like that. But potentially two nobles on eagles, is a very dangerous, very mobile goon squad that makes someone like Lord Kroak just look much less attractive in competitive play just because he's such a vulnerable target. So let's test one more giant Deliverance of Itza. I'm going to try and drop it squarely on the Fireborn. And also, actually, I'm going to... Oh no, the game ended. Did you exit out? Or perhaps did time run out? Oh no. Oh no, the cliffhanger. Oh god. Oh, it was the timer. Guys, we had to take a short break in between recording these two. I feel cheated. I feel absolutely cheated. You want to just jump in with just Lord Kroak and the Fireborn and just nuke them from full health? Alright, cool. I'm just gonna bring him. And let's drop. We can't leave like that. We can't leave without doing the deliverance. Alright, I'm jumping back in the game. So okay. Okay, cool. He's bringing Tyrion this time. So guys, I think we learned a lot from this unit testing. We kind of got a better feel in part one for the role of the red-crested skinks. We understand that the strength of the Temple Guard is not necessarily in their 1v1 power, but certainly in their ability to keep your lords alive. And of course, they are anti-large infantry. They're not meant to fight other infantry, really. But we learn that they can, if necessary, stand and fight. And then the Ripperdactyls, the Colossedon, as fragile as they can be, the fact that they can take down a Star Dragon from 100% to 0 without losing almost a single model is pretty impressive. Right at the end, they did lose. Yeah, Triiari saying they did lose models. They lost the models when the dragon was just about at like 20% HP. That was when like the models started to like just drop. But the dragons themselves have a bit of a splash attack. So what was happening was you're seeing the damage that it's doing being spread over their models, and because they're such strong units, their kind of the HP count of the individual model is very high, kind of very similar to the Royal Hippogriff Knights in a way. So, all right, let's just you want to just charge in? Let me charge in. I'm going to charge in with my Skink Chief against the Fireborn. Oh God, Sunfang. That's how you know he's cocky. He's Sunfanging his own Fireborn here. Alright, and then once they're engaged, I'll just drop a Deliverance of Itza. So this is definitely a fight that favors the Fireborn. They have anti-large. But let's just watch this cool charge. Oh no, Tyrion. We'll let him wrap him up. This is all part of the plan. Don't worry, guys. Keep him alive. I wonder how many kills he can actually get. He's doing decent damage. Of course, neither of them are supported. Just need to wait a few more seconds so we can do the tier 3 deliverance. And then I'm going to drop it in the biggest part of the blob and see what kind of damage it does. So the Fireborn have 110 armor. They're such an awesome unit. Their color scheme is great. And I love the fact that the little skinks on top of the Ancient Stegodon continue shooting their darts. So here we go. So we've got the Deliverance of Itza. Once again, I'm going to drop it dead center because I don't have to worry about it damaging the red-crested Skink Chief. Let's go ahead and go into K mode so we can see everything. Oh God, it was too awesome. There we go, it's still going. Go into slow-mo there, and wow. Jesus! Oh, God. 58 HP. Like, it froze my computer for a second because I zoomed in, like, way too